word that the shooter was a passenger on a Canadian Air flight and checked his gun. He claimed his bag, took the gun from the baggage, went into the bathroom and loaded it, came out and started shooting. 13 total shot, 5 of them dead. The authorities updating us now. Let's listen.
The lower level by baggage. The active shooter shot at least 13 people. 8 people, as I know right now, are in area hospitals being treated. I don't know the degree of their injuries. 5 people have succumbed to their wounds and tragically are dead. We are not releasing any information on any of the victims until we identify them, which is going to take some time, and we are able to respectfully notify the next of kin first. The investigation continues. We have area SWAT teams and the Broward Sheriff's Office SWAT team clearing the entire airport. There'll be no movement in or about the airport until our SWAT teams give me real-time information that it's safe. Right now we're taking, this scene is considered fluid and active. We won't be, well, we have, one of the more critical pieces of information is we have the shooter in custody. He's unharmed. No law enforcement fired any shots. The subject is being interviewed by a team of FBI agents and Broward Sheriff's Office homicide detectives. There's been incredible cohesiveness and cooperation between the Broward Sheriff's Office, the FBI, FDLE, and all the local law enforcement entities.
I am Dr. Michael Collins, and I want to be your surgeon. I can do something about that, so that you can do what you love to do, what you're passionate about doing, even better, faster, with more focus. See the world in a whole new way. Did you know you have choices? We'll work together to make a decision about your vision. Only the very best for my patients, because that's what you deserve.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that the airport itself says this is ongoing, and we're sort of piecing this together. Steve Rogers, former FBI task force member, is on the phone. So, Steve, as the picture comes together for us all at about the same time, it's our understanding that there was some sort of incident that happened either at the taxi area, which is often right outside the baggage claim, where people are picking up their bags and moving out to get picked up to leave the airport. We only know from our affiliate that the shooter has been contained, but what that means exactly, we don't know. We don't know the extent of injuries. What is the priority for law enforcement right now?
Well, right now, they have shut down those terminals. There's no one going to be leaving that terminal at all, or any of those areas at all, until everyone is checked out by the police. I can tell you right now that they're probably concerned about maybe other suspects. They want to make sure that there's not just one shooter contained. If there are other people involved, they're going to look for them. And very, very important right now is the video footage that they are probably looking at now as we're speaking, to see what went on, how it went on, how this thing came down. We're talking about the baggage area. We don't know if something was put on one of those conveyor belts, if something came off the aircraft. So it's so soon to assume anything, but I'll tell you this, the police got that whole place tightened up. No one's going to be coming or going out of those terminals.
And it's unfortunate in this day and age that every time something like this happens, we have to inquire about the prospects of terrorism. We know that terrorists have attacked airports in Turkey, for instance, and you have to wonder whether that's part of the plan here.
Well, you're absolutely right. And look, and not only myself, but many people in the intelligence community have said for many, many months, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And whether it be a terrorist connected with an international connection or a homegrown terrorist, terrorism is terrorism. Now, saying that, we're beginning to realize, because we've seen this happen in malls, we've seen this happen in airports, that we're going to have to change our rules of engagement regarding law enforcement. There has to be a tremendous high visibility of uniformed officers in all of these public places. These are soft targets. We hear time and again, well, we don't have the money to put police personnel and dogs here or there. We're going to have to do it. It's either going to be we're going to spend money or we're going to spend lives. But what we're going to have to do is ensure that we're doing the best we could to protect the people. Now, that doesn't mean a lone gunman or some maniac is going to come in and begin to cause havoc. But what it does mean, it'll certainly minimize the possibility of something happening. Yeah. So we're going to have to change the rules of engagement.
I don't want to jump the gun. We don't know what the situation is here. We understand that the shots were fired near the area of the taxi stand. Driving a cab can be a stressful occupation, and sometimes one guy has a beef with another and pulls out a gun. You don't know what happened here, but it's obviously frightened those passengers who are now well out onto the tarmac, being sort of held in a pen there at Fort Lauderdale International Airport.
It might be confusing to our viewers, John. I know it was the first time that I heard it, that eyewitness accounts can sometimes be the most misleading, and you have to be very careful. And that seems counterintuitive, because you think an eyewitness would see everything. That's why you call them an eyewitness. As we take a look again at Fort Lauderdale Airport, where the shooting took place. What we are seeing at this time are reports that the number of injured has gone up. So I want to be careful with these numbers. We don't know them yet. I did mention that the initial reports placed it around a handful of people with injuries. Now we're seeing it move up a little bit more, and when we don't have confirmation of the precise number, I hesitate sharing that. But according to the airport, an ongoing situation. So we quite frankly, Steve, don't know whether or not this is over yet. According to one report, I should also mention that, again, we're just going through a few different reports here. Our affiliate says the shooter's contained. Another report says the shooter's in custody. We're going to try to work it out. Rod Wheeler's with us, a former D.C. homicide detective. He joins us by phone. And interesting, Rod, here we're watching on live television. You see a plane land, because if you're in the air, you got to land. But the folks on the plane have no idea what sort of situation they're landing to.
Exactly. And you know what? This is still a very fluid situation. And I was just listening to when you said the police had the suspects contained. Now, some viewers may be saying, well, what does that mean? That means that the threat itself may have been taken out right now. The individual has been surrounded, probably in custody. We don't know that yet. This is still a very fluid situation. So what happens at airports is that when the airport police notify the authorities, the FTA and the authorities there, what's going to happen is all flights coming in and going out of the airport are put on hold at that point. And that way, no one can come in, no one can get out until they get the situation under control.
Well, talk about getting the situation under control. I mean, that's got to be, from an investigator standpoint, sort of the worst possible scenario. You've got thousands and thousands of people, some of whom are arriving, some of whom are trying to leave, and you're trying to figure out who the gunman is, who got shot, who the target was. I mean, from the standpoint of a police investigator, Rod, it's got to be a nightmare scenario.
Well, it is, but I'll tell you one thing, John. We do train, law enforcement train for these situations quite often. And I'll tell you, you make a very good point in terms of air traffic coming in and air traffic going out. Until the situation is really under control, meaning they have the suspect in custody and there's no other threat. See, that's the other thing you have to worry about with these types of situations. You may have a person surrounded. You may have a person in custody, but there still may be other threats there at the airport. It could be in the form of a bomb. It could be a vehicle. We don't know. So what they're going to do right now, they're trying to check out this person that they have contained, make sure that there's no other threats to the passengers or to the people that's living in that area, John.
Again, this is going to have ripple effects on the air transportation situation nationwide. JetBlue is the biggest airline serving the Fort Lauderdale International Airport. About 23% of the flights in and out of there are JetBlue flights. So if you're elsewhere in the country and you think this does not affect you, but you're planning on taking a JetBlue flight today, you might want to check on the departure time, because this is going to slow down that airline significantly and a number of others as well.
Fort Lauderdale Airport gunman was a passenger who retrieved his handgun from checked luggage and then killed 5 people at point-blank range in baggage claim before surrendering to police. 5 people are dead and 8 injured after a shooting at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport. The gunman has been taken into custody and identified as 26-year-old Esteban Santiago. Santiago was reportedly from New Jersey, but his most recent address was in Naples, Florida NBC News reports that Santiago had a history of mental problems. He is said to have been carrying a military ID at the time of his arrest. Law enforcement teams are still clearing the airport to make sure it's safe. By Ashley Coleman and Liam Quinn for DailyMail.com and Jose Lambayat FT Lauderdale for DailyMail.com and Reuters. Published 13:20 Eastern Standard Time, the 6th of January 2017. Pipe updated 16:49 Eastern Standard Time, the 6th of January 2017. 5 people are dead and at least 8 people injured after a shooting at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport. The incident happened around 1 p.m. at the lower-level baggage claim area of Terminal 2. The gunman, wearing a Star Wars t-shirt, was taken into custody and has since been identified as 26-year-old Esteban Santiago. Santiago reportedly flew into the airport from Canada and checked a gun for the flight. He then opened fire in the baggage area after loading his weapon in the bathroom, Broward County Commissioner Chip LaMarca said. Santiago was from New Jersey, but his most recent address was in Naples, Florida. NBC News also reports that he had a history of mental problems. Santiago was a combat engineer in the Army National Guard and was honorably discharged in 2016, the Army Criminal Investigation Division confirmed. Other details about the shooter are now being released. In addition to Florida and New Jersey, Santiago also lived in Anchorage, Alaska from 2014 to 2016. Court records in that state show he had a minor criminal record for traffic violations. He was also evicted by his landlord for failing to pay rent in February 2015. Santiago was charged with 4th-degree assault and damage of property in January 2016, stemming from a domestic violence incident. In March, Santiago settled the charges by agreeing to complete unknown requirements demanded by prosecutors in exchange for dismissing the case. About 90 minutes after the shooting, chaos broke out again when police officers were seen rushing into the parking garage with their guns drawn while bystanders sought shelter behind vehicles. But the Broward County Sheriff said at an afternoon press conference that the only shooting that happened was in Terminal 2, and that he currently believes only one gunman was involved. Another witness told NBC Miami that the shooter was silent and didn't appear to be targeting anyone in particular, popping off bullets at random. John Schlicker, who told MSNBC he saw the attack, described the shooter as a slender man who was directly firing at youths while passengers waited for their bags to come off the carousel. In another interview with Fox News, Schlicker said that the shooter was aiming at people's heads. All the people seemed to be shot in the head, Schlicker said. He was shooting people who were down on the ground too. The shooter reloaded once for a second burst of shooting, Schlicker said, but he could not say how many bullets were fired. Mark Lee, a 53-year-old financial advisor from Minneapolis, says he was in baggage claim when the shooting started. I was dodging bullets and trying to help people get out of the way, Lee said. At first we thought it was firecrackers, he said. Everyone started screaming and running. The shooter made his way down through baggage claim. He had what looked like a 9mm and emptied his entire clip. People were trying to run. But the Broward County Sheriff said at an afternoon press conference that the only shooting that happened was in Terminal 2 and that he currently believes only one gunman was involved. Another witness told NBC Miami that the shooter was silent and didn't appear to be targeting anyone in particular, popping off bullets at random. John Schlicker, who told MSNBC he saw the attack, described the shooter as a slender man who was directly firing at youths while passengers waited for their bags to come off the carousel. In another interview with Fox News, Schlicker said that the shooter was aiming at people's heads. All the people seemed to be shot in the head, Schlicker said. He was shooting people who were down on the ground too. The shooter reloaded once for a second burst of shooting, Schlicker said, but he could not say how many bullets were fired. Sources now tell DailyMail.com that terrorism could be a motive for the attack. The Florida attack was the latest in a series of mass shootings that have plagued the United States in recent years, some inspired by militants with an extreme view of Islam, others who are loners or mentally disturbed who have easy access to weapons under U.S. gun laws. Video from the airport Friday afternoon showed hundreds of passengers corralled together on the tarmac with emergency vehicles parked outside the terminal with lights flashing. Former White House press secretary to President George W. Bush, Ari Fleischer, was at the airport at the time of the shooting and tweeted about the chaos. Just after 1 p.m., he wrote that shots have been fired. Everyone is running. Minutes later, he said police told him there was just one shooter. By 1:30 p.m., the scene had settled. All seems calm now, but the police aren't letting anyone out of the airport, at least not the area where I am, Fleischer wrote. The airport is one of the top 25 busiest airports in the nation, and is located about 25 miles north of Miami. All services were temporarily suspended, the airport's Twitter feed said. Governor Rick Scott is traveling to Fort Lauderdale to be briefed on the situation. Timeline of the shooting. 12:57 p.m., reports of the shooting emerged. Former White House press secretary Ari Fleischer said, "Everyone is running." 1:16 p.m., Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport released a statement confirming there was an ongoing incident at the baggage claim in Terminal 2. 1:37 p.m., pictures and videos emerged of passengers being evacuated out onto the tarmac. 1:50 p.m., officials said all services at the airport had been temporarily suspended. 2:33 p.m., TSA issued a second warning. Update: active shooter. Shelter in place. There were reports of an incident in Terminal 1, where a pilot said they smelled gunpowder. 2:37 p.m., Broward County Commissioner Chip LaMarca said the shooter had landed at the airport on an international flight and collected the gun, which he had checked into his luggage. He then, according to LaMarca, walked into the bathroom, loaded his weapon, then walked back out into the baggage claim and opened fire. 3:33 p.m., Broward Sheriff Scott Israel said only one person had been arrested in the shooting,